everything is about money, everything.
Yeah,
And so we have to understand that that's the underlying game here, or the underlying jurisdiction
right.
that, and unless you're playing at that level, they don't pay attention to you.
Mhm.
You can go out and protest, you can sign petitions, you can even go to court if you want. They got the court completely controlled.
All right. This is going to be a strange one, but I 100% ascribe that to the strangeness of the times we're living in. There is a movement that I became aware of that right now is almost not known, but I think it will become known very soon. Um, and I don't know what will come of it, but I wanted to share some of my sense making around what makes this movement so powerful, and kind of the mechanisms, or like why it can even do the things that it claims it does. So the movement is called the InPower Movement, and it uses a set of rules or laws, referred to as common law. Um, and I even don't know if I get all these terms right. This is super alien to me, and I think to almost everyone, because none of us were taught this stuff in school. Um, but they use some very old set of laws that almost none of us have ever heard of, but very few of our species know very well. That supersede all these newer laws, because these newer laws have just been built on top of it. So the right way to think about this, in my opinion, is to use the metaphor of a computer. Most of us, including me, when I was younger, think or thought that a computer is a user interface. You have like a desktop and like these folders and icons and stuff like that. And I was always confused what this terminal app was doing in that computer, because there you had to like write in a shell like commands, and I was always confused because I thought like that terminal is inside the desktop, right? It took a while for me to understand that computers have evolved over time, starting with like Turing machines that were literally like just mechanical things executing logic. But then people have, streamlined these layers and then built other layers of abstraction on top of that. So I can't name all these layers, but I can tell you that this is the perfect metaphor, because almost no one alive today, except for very few of our species, know the inner workings all the way to the bottom, to the foundation of how a computer works. I have some vague understanding of logic gates and stuff like that, but I don't really know. But I know how to use like a Mac or something like that. And now it's getting even worse, because now people grow up and think a computer is like a touch screen with a home button and language model GPT that you can talk to. So they are like so far removed from the foundation of the whole thing that they are, in a very profound sense, very powerless compared to someone who has access or knowledge of these deeper layers. Still remember, a friend in uni revealed to me that on a Mac, if you set a password, that is actually not fundamental. You can just like use the like boot it up in the shell, in a shell mode, and then turn off the password. So it's kind of like he said, it's like a child lock or something like that. So yeah, this is the perfect metaphor. There are some people that can do stuff that seems impossible for us, for the ignorant majority, to do, but it has always been possible. It's just that almost all of us are ignorant of the inner workings. So now apply that to the legal and financial system, which hasn't evolved over like the last 100 years or so, like computers, but has evolved over, I don't know, thousands of years. I don't know how far back it goes, but we've been thinking about money and laws for a long time. And the kind of story that I got from a recent conversation, which I will link to in the description, around the InPower movement, is that basically, like, I will want to give some of my reflections of what I heard that they say and kind of my sense making around that, and then some speculation of how this all fits together into a coherent picture. But with a disclaimer that I truly don't know. I'm learning this in real time, and I actually appreciate you guys sharing your sense making in the comments for this, because yeah, I think it's worthwhile. So this is my own framing now, but I have the sense that from what I understood, the legal system, now we have somewhat of a global legal system, right? Like countries can sue each other and stuff like that. Like the whole globe has like a somewhat coherent legal structure enveloping the whole thing. If you go back in time, at some point the world was not interconnected enough to have that. There was natural law, like indigenous people refer to it, that it's obvious that if you only, take from the soil, for example, and never give back, then you don't get food. Like this is natural law. This was and is ruling the whole planet. But people started building rules on that, abstractions on that, which is then the man-made law, you could say. The Kogi say it's the laws of the little brothers. They made up their own laws. They don't follow natural law, which I find quite funny. But now we have that global system. So how did it come? How did it arrive here? I think, if I understand the story correctly, that the first ever, the frontier of our species, in terms of having some globalized interactions, from which something like that could even arise in the first place, were merchants. The very first people traveling far distances and keeping routes of interaction and trade alive, and like building these silk roads and stuff like that, were merchants. And as you would expect, just naturally, it evolved to be a class. Like some families kind of conquered that modality, which is just human nature. Like this is so obvious that this happens. And these merchants apparently were then the first to create banks, and like the merchant families became the banking families of today. And the reason why this matters is that I believe that from the merchant interactions, the merchant's modality, our legal system, at least the globalized one, emerged because they needed to figure out rules how to behave globally when doing trade. That was like the first reason to think about like global rules or something like that, in terms of in terms of trade in this case. So in Germany, or in German, there is this phrase, Geld regiert die Welt, which is translated to money rules the world. And everyone knows that, and everyone also believes that. But I believe that almost everyone, including me up to recently, has no clue how true that statement is. Because one thinks it's more like a surface level thing, you bribe politicians, or you, I don't know, use money to have some subtle influence and like steer the world a bit. And like the legal system is here, and then money kind of comes from the top and like fucks with it a bit. Now, from the story that I'm telling, it seems to me, to the degree that there's any signal in there, it seems to me that the financial system, the money system, the merchant system, the trade and barter system preceded the legal system in a meaningful way, at least this globalized legal system. And so, yeah, this is one of these things that is so unintuitive, the same way that I was baffled when my friend could just turn off my password. I was like, how is this possible? Well, there are moves that anyone could make, but only if you have the knowledge that they can make that, that are equally impossible if you don't understand these very old origins of like the laws, the waters that we swim in. So most of us have never heard of an affidavit, for example, or a notice of liability and stuff like that. I've never heard these terms before, but this is like the stuff that is like all the way at the bottom layer, which, yeah, where really like the Game of Thrones, if you want to call it like that, or like where really like the decisions are being steered in a global sense. So the story, I try to go from where I was to how the InPower movement works. And again, apologies, probably a lot of noise in there, but these merchants started to write their signature on paper in a note that was called like a promise to pay. So yeah, very, very easy, right? Like just, I promise you to pay that in the future. And then this paper would have value, because if you own this paper, then you can at some point go to the merchant and say, now I want the money, like now I want gold or actual products in exchange. And they started doing that. It's quite obvious, like that's everyone would start doing that. But at some point, they realized that people were not really cashing them in. They would just like, it had value, so they would just trade that thing and not really come back to the merchant and ask him to, give actual value in exchange for that paper. So very obvious next step is, we can just write much more of these than we actually have value, because people are not changing them in. People are happy, like a paper is very practical. So this is like the origins of something like a money supply, paper-based money supply. This is the historical origins of money, is that, apparently. And yes. Then after that, at some point, like now these people have the ability to basically create much more value than they have, print money, basically. And these families become the first banking families and the banking system. And I didn't know that as well, but Richard Werner did some research on that, literally writes money into existence, but almost no one knows this, apparently. Yes. What then apparently happened, according to the InPower movement, is that they started turning the ignorant public into merchants through the birth certificate. And basically, without informing anyone what this means and what this is, basically this is would be a great great move, because now everyone is on the same level, right? But what basically happened is that they gave us the same power that they had to write money into existence as a merchant, but but because we're ignorant that we can do that, we constantly use that power to give them more money and power. Which, it sounds ridiculous, but apparently it's like every time you get money from a bank, then what's actually happening is that you write that into existence, and it's your money, like it's your promise to pay, and you're like on equal playing field, legally speaking, in this very old law. But you don't know that, so they sell you your own money with interest, something like that. And there's even one more step that I haven't fully understood yet, but yeah, I'm learning in real time, and I hope just to get some people that are better in that to teach me all the blind spots I still have. But energetically speaking, they kind of gave us a lot of power, but kept us in ignorance to harness even more power, because it's just a Game of Thrones move, like you optimize, it's a multipolar trap and all of that stuff. It's just Moloch. It's not really that interesting, but it is interesting to figure out like that you live in that structure and how to use these mechanisms once you get aware of them. But yeah, it's just an open optimization game. If you get billions of people to also write money into existence, then you double and triple that with that weird banking mechanism that I just laid out. You just concentrate a lot more power, a lot more effectively, which is, this is the nature, like this is Moloch, like this is the definition of that beast. Like this is what it does, the air it breathes. Its purpose for existence is to concentrate power. And to be honest, like, I'm impressed. This is really, really good stuff. But now, the InPower movement consists of just a few folks that, through, I think, through blood, sweat, and tears, were able to figure out that stuff. Trial and error went into this, and I have a lot of respect for these people. But they now understand this game, and they use it. And first of all, there's a game theoretic elegance here that I just love, because this is like so beyond corrupt. Our whole society would just like implode overnight if everyone was aware that this is the game. Like we're kind of playing Monopoly, and we all have like printing machines, but give the money to like the person who had it first or something like that. No one would participate if they really knew that this is what's going on. And so when people that are not supposed to be in on this start using this, then the kind of merchant families that have been doing that, or like the powerful families that have been doing that for centuries or millennia, they can't just say like you're not allowed to do this, because then they reveal that they are also not allowed to do this, or like, you know, like they're in this thing, like if they tell you this is not real money, you just wrote it into existence, well, then these people can say like, but you're doing the same thing, and then they kind of like saw off the branch in which they sit. So I love this part. It makes a lot of sense to me why this is kind of beyond revolutionary. But what they do specifically now is they found like a process that works quite well. That, you know, you want to avoid too many complexities when doing this stuff, because still so much is unknown. No one of us has been taught that, but they figured out enough to have like a path that works consistently and is scalable. What they do is they have a list of what they believe to be corrupt public servants, and they write them notices of liability, or notes of liability, letting them know that they hold them liable for guaranteeing that certain technologies that are in the public sphere are safe. And basically just a letter saying it's okay, you can roll out these technologies, but you have to prove that they are safe. And for every day that you don't, we charge you $20,000. And basically, I'm still a bit fuzzy to the direct connection, but it uses exactly this kind of promise to pay, like this notion that your signature is money, to start charging them. And I think they get them into a situation where whatever person is targeted is in a public role and is held accountable and liable, basically. They then either have the choice to keep being in that position until that amount of money just goes exponential, because anyone that has a birth certificate can participate in that, to my understanding. And they have a few hundred to thousands people, I think, only doing that, like a very low amount of people. And they're already at 3 billion fake money / real money wrote into existence through that mechanism, which the way I understand it is it's just a very fancy way of suing people. Um, but probably there's more nuance to that, but that's my understanding. Um, yes, but they do this, and basically people in public roles have this choice: either they can prove that these technologies are safe, or they have to pay that exponentially growing amount, um, or they step down. And everyone has chosen the third option so far. And this is the crazy part, because this is where we can actually prove the stuff. So
We had a lot of people step down, so it was commensurate with, the percentages. It seems like, the more people do it, the more people step down.
Yes.
Yeah, so, but we had some notables, three premiers in Australia.
And in a shock move, Mark McGowan has stepped down as WA Premier and member for Rockingham because of burnout.
Finally, last week, my mind was made up at National Cabinet. I thought to myself, renewal is a good thing. I don't need to do it again.
Today I will again visit Government House and resign as Premier and member for Mulgrave, effective 5 p.m. tomorrow.
And the biggest one is a royal, and that's the Queen of Denmark. She got 14 notices of liability and abdicated the throne on New Year's Eve.
Europe's longest reigning living monarch, Queen Margrethe II of Denmark, took her last official golden carriage ride through Copenhagen on Thursday, ahead of her abdication set for the 14th of January.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, so when you hit a royal, that's big.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like in chess, I just took your queen.
Yeah.
a lot of powerful people are being held accountable in areas where so far that hasn't really worked. So yes. And the last thing, which is next level crazy, is that they will create a cryptocurrency which will be backed by these notices of liability, meaning like this money supply that like the people can now print into existence, which is exactly the game that we've been playing all along, but we just didn't know that we could do that. Like just a few people have monopolized this. Now it's getting democratized in a sense. And people can write money into existence through these notices of liability. And at the end of the day, they will create a cryptocurrency that is backed by that. And by that, I mean like literally these pieces of paper with the name on it, with the signature on it, and these pieces of paper will be in the homes of anyone participating. Like it's fully decentralized and will back a cryptocurrency that will just, as far as I understand it, increase in value similarly to, like it's literally like the people get this power that the Federal Reserve has, where they could just in a few months, almost double the supply of the dollar. Like wizards creating that money out of thin air. Well, we the people can do that now too. And yeah. So to the degree that you are able to take this stuff seriously, because I know there's a lot of fuzziness and noise, but yeah, it's hard to take seriously. But you can check out like all the people that they targeted, they are stepping down. And I mean, if the Queen of Denmark is stepping down, then something is going on. That's quite interesting. Yeah, but to the degree that you can take that seriously and understand it better than I do, and also have better models of the financial system than I do, because that's not really my wheelhouse. I'd be interested to hear your opinion. What happens when this money printing thing starts to happen and this cryptocurrency starts to go through the roof, which then everyone will just be like, I want to buy it. And not really ask too many questions, but just, it's money. So very quickly, I think almost everyone will figure out that this is like a big scam in a sense, and we can just print that ourselves. yeah, what will that do if we play Monopoly and everyone has a money printing machine? Yeah, I have no clue, but I actually appreciate your comments on this.